I think the biggest mistake I've seen people make, and actually we haven't had it for a long time now, I think people are better educated. The very beginning when we first set out, there was companies who joined us who would, open in one area and then decide to hire a surveyor in the other part of the country and expect the same results. Now, you're not, no one, you might very well be your local go-to person for your area, but no one knows you up in, Manchester or somewhere if you're in south of England. You got to start from scratch and your conversion will drop, your cost will rise unless you've pre-planned this, which some don't, many do, but some don't. You're going to end up wondering why it's not working. But, it really is lack of planning and go a completely different area where no one knows who you are. Whereas perhaps going like a couple of areas out of where you're based, that means that A, you're tackling the next door region to yourself, but B, should that person ever be ill, you can probably cover.
Mm-hmm. So that adjacent jump is really important, that expansion into
I would always focus on whatever region someone's in, cover the entire region first, and then look at the neighbouring ones and see where there's demand.
Very good. Matt, I don't know whether you want to add to that, but it also ties into something that obviously is close to both of our hearts and things that we think about on a daily basis in terms of, one answer to I've got a 5-week waiting line and losing business is to go, right, well, we can bring someone on. And that comes with relatively high overheads. I suppose the other thing would look at your own process, look at your own systems, and that you can talk at length about this, but thinking about how you can enable more time for yourself or make sure that you're building more time for you to complete those surveys.
Yeah, I was going to say the other thing you can do is put your price up. If you're that far ahead, there's an argument you're potentially too cheap at that point. But I think when you're coming to the point of you're that busy, and or you want to be starting to build a team around you, whether that's more surveyors in terms of more coverage, or whether that's getting an admin team in, office assistant, whatever that is, you need to start moving away from the mentality of I do everything in my head and at my email inbox to I need a process and a system. You can't have everyone trying to read what's in your mind and expect everything to run smoothly. So, for example, if you're not available for a bit, who else can look at what's going on the job when someone calls in? How are you tracking who's doing what from a compliance perspective? All these types of things need a system behind them. You can't just wing it anymore and wake up at 2 a.m. going, oh, I forgot to send that email out. I'll put a note for tomorrow morning. You have to have structure. So I think that there's an element of planning. Many do that when they launch and they go, we've got lots of startups with us that go, I know what I want to do. I also know that even if I just want to be on my own, we've got loads of sole practitioners. I don't want that stress of waking up trying to remember if I did something. Or trying to find that email in the thread or remembering what colour flag to put on it. You need the system.
And we talked about people getting into surveying because they like surveying, right? There's the reality that comes with it is actually there's a whole host of different things that need to
There's a whole host.
To go with it.
We get this a lot, and don't get me wrong, like anyone who's ever asked us for a call to inquire about our services, the first thing I tell anyone is you need to get yourself a good system, both for reporting and for your data. Like you cannot work off an Excel. If I ask you what's your conversion per lead source and you can't tell me, that means you don't know what's working and what's not. And that's obviously where the likes of Survey Booker comes in. I mean, a push of a button and you can actually break down, as long as it's set up correctly, you can break down where every single bit of business has come from. Equally with a reporting tool. If you're going to do everything on Word, yes, it might work for you and it works for certain people. But if you're going to try and obviously be a one-man, who wants to do everything with or without support externally, you need to try and maximize, obviously, the time you're spending on certain things and obviously having to, manually chase up quotes or manually chase up, send terms, upload them to sign it. And also with the reporting itself. So, if you're writing into a Word, that's by default, it's going to take a lot longer than, talking into GoReport.
Yeah. And you would hope you spend more time doing the things you do enjoy doing, right?
That's the thing. That is the whole idea. Yeah, that is the entire idea. You think it's common sense, but we, the amount of people that we talk to, I talk to that have, that use Word or no system. And I say, obviously, something like a business support or an admin person, that obviously is a much higher upfront cost. That could, you might need it. You might decide to do it yourself. Your wife could do it for you. But systems, the amount of hours you as a firm get back by having those systems in place, priceless.
Yeah, and tying it back to what we've been talking about the whole way through with lead sources and knowing, making sure you're growing and achieving what you want, whether that's maximizing your diary or scaling up. You need to be able to make decisions on what sources are working well for you, and that's not just conversion rate, but like the right average fee, because you can have a great conversion rate, terrible average fee, and vice versa. So you don't want to turn a source off because it's low conversion, even if it's getting you triple the fee. But a lot of the time you won't have that information, or it won't be accurate if you've not filled in your spreadsheet correctly and missed things off and not updated it at the right times. And years ago, way before my surveying days, I was an area manager for Lidl, and in the bakery sections, you'd be looking at the stats because everything was data driven. And you'd be like, why are you baking 20 trays of blueberry muffins? Like, everyone loves them. And you're going, well, stats show that people eat about 2 a day. So we're writing loads of stuff and writing it off and throwing it away. So it's easy to have anecdotal evidence in your head of what's working, but very often the stats will be different. And so that's again why a process, doesn't have to be our system, but a process around properly tracking information then helps you grow properly.
And having that data, and not just from a switching off perspective, right? But if you know competitors or peers are doing well in a certain area and you're not, it's a really good opportunity to evaluate and say, well, how do we change our process? How do we change what we're doing?
It's also really important to work out, and a lot of people don't do this, to work out the cost of the actual lead acquisition. Because generally, if you're brainstorming with someone, with a surveyor, and you say, okay, well, why don't you join X panel? And they'll go, oh, the fees are a bit low. And I'm like, okay, but what is your actual cost when you're going off lead generation sites? The conversion might be great, but what's the actual cost? And actually, sometimes you'll find that if you work out the cost, sometimes that panel job, which has no lead cost to it, will have made you more than than a lead generation. You have to know your stats. If you don't know your stats, you're operating blind. You might think something works and it doesn't. Another big thing from a reporting end, actually, is whatever tool someone uses to report with on the property, assuming they're using a software, everyone needs to go through putting in their phrases in. Because if you don't do those phrases, you're going to, have a software. You tick the box of I have a software tick, but you're not getting any quicker because your phrases are not in there and you're starting to copy and paste them off in Excel.
Yeah.
Actually taking the time to build that up and having everything that you would put into a report in there as an option saves so much time when you're inside.
And I think that setup's critical, right? You'll know this, Jemma, in terms of adoption, in terms of getting value from companies like GoReport, making the most of the support team, the onboarding team to go, right, I've got this really strong foundation from which to build is absolutely critical.
But also I think it's crucial for people, if there is something that someone needs that they can't see being provided, speak up, because sometimes that feature might be there and you just won't know about it. And other times, if enough people are requesting something will get put in place eventually. Like I talk from experience with Matt. I mean, I've worked with Matt across basically since I started in surveying, across different companies. But take Surveybook, every single time that, and I point things out. I'm that kind of person that goes, I really, really would like to have this because it, and I explain the rationale behind it. But you actually, you a year later or 6 months later, however long that might be, that is then put in. And actually, we've learned to operate in the exact same system. So from launch to now, we've added in a certain amount of services, like a weekend cover, for example, because we were requested it by our clients. And obviously, if there's a rationale that makes sense, and if it's something that people will need, then absolutely, and I think, don't just assume that because you can't see something, it's not there. Because sometimes it could very well be there as an option. You just don't know about it. And if it isn't, the companies will look at it. That's data that is good for them to be able to build and get better.
Yeah, I was going to say, more often than not, it'll be really useful feedback that you can be into the roadmap, and they'll be delighted to hear it. So absolutely.
Only bit, if we wanted to flesh it out a tiny bit more, is just the referrals bit, because there's a lot of particularly at the moment with the home survey standard being out, there's a lot of debate around the ethics of referral fees and referrals, and I can touch on that if that helps.
So talking about referrals, I know they can, referral fees specifically can be contentious, and I think they're referenced explicitly in the new home buyer standards, which are under review at the moment. Matt, I know you've contributed to that and have some thoughts on that side of things.
Yeah, there's a lot of debate around referral fees, which I get. You want to be transparent with customers if you're going down that route. obviously who reports on things like panels, the panel side of fees and who's taking what cuts is different. But yeah, under the new standards, you do need to say whether it's in consultation still, obviously, but you do need to reference whether you have potentially paid a fee or have paid a fee. There are questions around the ethics on referring or referral fees, and I get it in terms of is there a risk that potentially you're going to favour the way you do a report for the agent, so you keep getting more business. My argument is the referral fee makes no difference to that. You're incentivized or not to provide a good service to the agent. If you want to keep getting referrals, the fee is just another byproduct of that process. What you really need to be watching out for is, are you finding yourself slipping into, I'm softening how I present everything through a referrer because I don't want to stop the referrals, or no, I'm still being brutally honest. But when I deliver my feedback to the customer, I'm explaining it through the lens of their risk appetite. So, I might be a buyer that doesn't care if it's all threes. I know I'm going to be stripping it back to the brick and rewiring, replumbing, whatever. I just want to know the subfloor is going to collapse. Whereas there might be another buyer who just wants to move in. And so you've got to reference what you found in relation to their risk of wanting it to be ones. So I think that's where referrals you need to be careful. Is just in general, are you starting to flip towards trying to keep that relationship going? You're worried about losing that income rather than the fee.